His oldest, pretty nice company to be keeping, and that's a hell of a list right there. He now trumps Michael Jordan, which I know would please him to no end, the Wake Forest guy topping the Tar Heel. And once again, we welcome in Stephen A. Smith and Michael Wilbon to the show. And gentlemen, I'll begin with Chris Paul. I feel it's only appropriate. And Michael, how best to frame what it is that he provided this group? They had never been in the playoffs as constructed, and he obviously helps lead him. How do you frame what you saw from him in this evening?
Scott, I got to go back to the beginning of it when he first knew he was going to be traded, and it's know-how, it's poise, it's intellect, it's toughness, all of those things. There's so many more, but I think at least those few sort of represent all that Chris Paul is, and he really wanted to come here, meaning Phoenix, of course. And I probably shouldn't tell this story. I'm going to tell it quickly because it's an off-the-record story. If Chris gets mad at me later, I'll put some money in a little jar.
It's
right.
fine.
But, we're working on a project, a Chris Paul generated project, and so we're doing it on Zooms in the summer and in the early fall. And during one of the Zooms at the end, Chris says, "What are you going to do now? We're done." I go, "I don't know. I'll go out and hit some golf balls." He says, "Nah, I need a favor." I said, "What?" He goes, "Can you help me look for a house in Scottsdale?" I'm like, why would a guy who's already in LA with his family need a house in Scottsdale? And I said that, and he just pauses and he says, "Think, Mike, think." And I said, it took me a while, and I went, "Oh my God, this could happen." And what he talked about down there is the order that he talked about it. I mean, Booker, there were all those people involved, but Devin Booker was the big part. He, like the late, great Kobe Bryant, looked at Devin Booker very early on, and they each saw something that drew them. Mm-hmm. They loved everything about him. And so Chris wanted to play with Devin Booker, and he thought this could work. He thought it could work before anybody else thought it could work, other than maybe Devin. And so, but all of those things characterized the way Chris felt about coming to the Phoenix Suns at the beginning of the season.
You know, Mike Wilbon isn't the only one with an off-the-court story about Chris Paul. As you well know, Scott, Michael Wilbon, I executive produced a project, Why Not Us, with Chris Paul for ESPN Plus earlier this year. And a lot of times we found ourselves talking off the record about what he felt about Devin Booker. And let me tell you something about Chris Paul. He's not well liked by a few people in the NBA because he's an acquired taste, Scott. He's a guy that gets in your face, in your mug. He's incredibly demanding. He pulls no punches. He holds you accountable. That ain't for everybody, but here's what you need to know about him. As much as he's not liked by some people, he's loved more by others and universally respected by everyone because of his leadership ability. And so when you see him with his teammates in Phoenix and you see the way that they have this level of adulation and affection for him, what that means is they've bought in. They recognized a long time ago that this guy that is an acquired taste, if we acquire that taste, we might just be champions one day. That's the kind of talk that they were having during this season when they were one of the top two teams in the Western Conference, and it came out tonight to reach fruition. This is about the leadership of Chris Paul. A game 6, a closeout game, fresh off of Paul George dropping 41. What does he do? Does he answer with 25 points and 15 assists? No, he drops 41.
Real answer.
With 8 assists in 35 minutes with 0 turnovers. I'm sorry. It is the most special performance of his career, and it happened on the same night that this man is going to the NBA Finals for the first time in his 16-year career.
I think his greatest performance, not his best performance,
yes, his greatest.
But his greatest performance coming here, getting him to the finals, fulfilling all of this. And he stresses over it now. Don't be misled. I mean, he wants this badly. And so for him to make this happen here, and as Booker said, I asked Booker once, what is it like now that you got to be accountable to this guy? And he smiled, and Booker said, it ain't for everybody.
Right.
And you guys, I mean, he's a demanding dude.
And you guys both well know that whole disrespect or chip on the shoulder thing can be a played out routine. but he's fueled by those who believe that his best time was behind him. And I think he demonstrated clearly tonight what he still possesses. And now they have at least 4 more games to prove that he could be a champion, a minted champion once and for all. As always, gentlemen, your time appreciated. We'll talk again when the finals arrive, all right?
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
I appreciate it. There's a yin to that yang. On the other side of the joy, there's the emotions of Reggie Jackson, who visited with us the other night. He is fueled by confidence and a passion for this game, and his season came to an end.
His closest player in Devin Booker. His usage rate has also increased by 21% since Kawhi Leonard went down with that sprained right knee. Earlier this week, PG-13's teammate DeMarcus Cousins had this to say about the criticism PG-13 receives.
I don't know where this trolling bullshit has come from, where the internet controls the narrative about these players. It's becoming foolish, man. Like I said earlier in the year, that's one of the most special players to ever lace his shoes up. Get this dude his flowers, man. I don't understand the slander. It's becoming quite silly now. Like, respect these players, man. Respect these greats.
Perk and Wilbon back with us. Respect these players. Respect these players. I mean, can somebody tell me what the hell DeMarcus Cousins is talking about? Can we start with you, Wilbon?
Yeah, well, we already know because he says that about himself. That people, the narrative and the haters, the whole theme is tiresome to me. We know what the culture is about, and it's been this way for decades. You win, the flowers are delivered.
That's right.
You don't, they're going to be critics. First of all, why are they paying so much attention to whoever the haters are? What are you doing?
Right.
Why are you paying attention to it all the time? Turn Instagram off and pay attention to something else, and you won't have to worry about the haters. So that whole thing is tiresome. Paul George did this to himself, I know unintentionally, and it shouldn't be that big a deal. It is to some people. It's not to me, the whole Playoff Pete nickname. When you haven't had a bunch of great playoffs, you can't be called an all-time great. That's just the way that works in any profession, and particularly in sports and entertainment. He did that. It has backfired to some degree. I said to you the other night, Paul George has been the best player in this series. Even with the 2 missed free throws, he's been the best player. DeAndre Ayton had pretty good games all the way along, too. But this is something Paul George decided to live with when he gave himself that nickname, Stephen A.
Right. Perk, your thoughts?
I mean, I'm just sitting up here and it's mind-boggling to me. If they gonna do all the crying, what the babies in the world are gonna do? I'm just asking. For the simple fact, I grew up with old school Rough Riders. I was raised by Gary Payton, Walter McCarty, Eric Williams, Kevin Garnett. They embraced the haterism. Look, at the end of the day, this is what you signed up for. The fortune and the fame. It comes with the good and the bad. You get paid millions of dollars. Who cares? At the end of the day, go out there and do your job. I said this before, Stephen A. and Mike Wilborn. KG used to tell me all the time, just like you have a good game and you want to go click on the television, you want to go see what Mike Wilborn and Stephen A. go say about you. When you have a bad game, go listen to it as well. And you use that as fuel to go out there and deliver and up your game and play even better.
Right.
I just don't understand it. I was sleeping good at night. AC on 60 and fan blowing in my face.
That's right. Perk, I got to tell you, KG once told me the same thing. I mean, he told me you're absolutely right on the money about that. And this is the thing that drives me crazy, and this is where I'll veer a little left from the both of y'all. What's their definition of hate? Can somebody look that up for me?
Anything that's not glowing praise.
When Paul George, first of all, we know that he's a high character guy, one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. He's really a great guy, and he can ball. No one has ever called him a scrub. He's gotten paid. Nobody disputed that he deserved the money that he got paid. All we said was that when he played great, but if you miss 2 free throws with 8.2 seconds left, for only the second time this season, and you just show up in a game 7 last year, somebody's going to call you out from it. And in terms of Boogie Cousins, nobody's ever said he couldn't play. What they talked about was his attitude. This is the guy that had a contract offered to him, an exorbitant contract by the Sacramento Kings. He ultimately turned that down. You had the owner using Shaquille O'Neal to try and counsel and tutor him or whatever. He didn't want to listen. Worldwide West, he didn't want to listen. You go to New Orleans, you're being a bit truculent, you're being a bit acerbic and rude and all of that other stuff. Doesn't exactly make you promotable or marketable. All of those things might have something to do with the hate that you received because people reported that kind of stuff. All right? I remember in Sacramento one time he went at a reporter, okay, that was about half his height and God knows half the size and double his age, if not triple. So when you talk about hate, what are you talking about? In the end, all I'm saying is I don't get where they're coming from with all of that.
Stephen A., we're talking about two generations of people, not just athletes or ball players, who think that any criticism is unwarranted no matter what. I had a coach tell me, a Hall of Fame coach said to me, coaching is now criticism to an entire generation. And coaches have to do their jobs differently, mindful that something's going to be called hate. So this is not unique to Boogie Cousins and Paul George.
Perk, I'll give you the last word real quick. Go ahead.
Stephen A. and Mike Wilborn, do y'all remember this? Okay, see, and it's no fun when the rabbit got the gun. You remember last year in the bubble when Dame Dollar and the Portland Trail Blazers were playing against the Clippers, and Dame Dollar went to the free throw line and missed both of the free throws, and the Clippers were over there mocking him and making fun of him and all that. Paul George was part of that, okay? It was all fine and dandy when you were criticizing Dame Dollar, but when the shooter's on the other foot, you can't take it. Dame Dollar bounced back, and he gave us a historical performance down there in the bubble.
It's a great point, but what I will say is this. That wasn't Paul George complaining. That was DeMarcus Cousins complaining.
That's right.
That was Paul George.
Fair.
That was different. Paul George wasn't the one complaining. That was DeMarcus Cousins complaining. What nerve. What nerve.